Welcome to this episode of Bringing Bias in from the Cold. My name's Bronwyn Williams. I'm a commentator and facilitator on bias and diversity. And today I have with me the marvellous Maz Farrelly. Hello, Maz.
Hello, darling. I love when people call me marvellous. It's super. Thank you very much.
Well, would you just give us a potted version of Maz, please?
Yes. So I have had a very interesting career. I'm on my third career. So I've been slightly greedy when it comes to work. My first one was as a stylist in London, and I lived sort of in Absolutely Fabulous. So when you watch it, that really was my life. So I watch it, it just doesn't seem weird at all. I go, of course it's like this. And you're surrounded by supermodels and you travel first class everywhere and you drink champagne. So I thought that was normal life until I went to telly. So I then had a career in television, and I made what I like to say are the biggest shows in the world with the biggest stars, the biggest teams, the biggest budgets, and the biggest audiences. And I've worked in Australia, LA, London, tiny bit in Asia. And I've done all the really big shows. So things like 5 series of Big Brother here and in the UK, The Farmer Wants a Wife, Celebrity Apprentice, The X Factor, Dancing with the Stars. But I also helped create Q&A for the ABC, which is the one that everyone likes. And now, because in TV we take very dull subjects and we make them interesting, now I am a speaker and a trainer, and I do boring audits on people. So I go through their assets, their speeches, their websites, their blogs, the way they introduce themselves, and I debore people because I have found this, Bronwyn, people are fascinating, interesting, really, really clever. And when you say, tell me about you, they tell you something really dull. They say, yes, I have 15 years experience at the cutting edge of marketing. You think, wow. I mean, generally they're not even that interesting. They just say, oh, I'm a lawyer. You go, I'm guessing there's more to it than that. I met a fantastic lawyer. We did a little bit of work because I think you've been to my workshops and stuff. And we worked out in the end that her one-liner is, she is a high-end lawyer and she keeps CEOs out of jail, which is so much more interesting than saying, I'm a lawyer. And what it takes is 2 seconds extra. I keep CEOs out of jail. 2 seconds and you tell me a story. So I'm obsessed with it, absolutely obsessed. So I do apologize. It should be a short answer, but then when I fall into that, the kind of, the warren of what I do, I get caught up in it and I can't stop.
Well, there you go. I love someone, actually Jacqueline Nagel, whom we both know and love. She said to me that
she's super.
I have a complex background and I don't see, it's just been my life. But when I take a step back and look at all the things I've done, I'm going, yeah, probably do have a complex background. So it is actually helpful for us to be able to have someone else look at our lives and, as you say, do an audit and go, do you see what you have? And I think that's wonderful.
Oh, completely. When I was a stylist, I found people, especially women, fascinating because I would put them in something, they'd look amazing in it. And that's not a matter of taste, it's a matter of just fact. You go, you look amazing. The colour really raises your skin. It, makes you a fantastic shape. You look very professional. You look absolutely $1 million. And what women would very often do is they go, but look at my elbows. No one's looking at your elbows, baby. Or something really strange. Yeah. They'd say, but with my big ribs, I have a friend who genuinely says, yeah, I've got these big ribs. Big ribs. There was someone, one of my daughter's school friends' mothers told me, 10 years ago that I had big ribs. I said, that is the maddest statement I have ever heard in my life. And this woman who is beautiful, and you know her, she's a household name. She's very, very famous. She was laughing about it. She said, I still think I have big ribs. You've won Logies, you're on the cover of 100 magazines. How can you possibly? So that's what we do. Yes. We focus on one thing that's negative and we forget all the other amazing things. And I come in and I will say, lots of the stuff that's on your website is white noise. So when I read it, can't remember it.
Yes.
Can't remember it. Because when I was doing the big shows, I did lots of casting. So I had about 12,000 people come into a room and tell me about them. a few people would cut through. I would say maybe 15 out of 12,000. And all the others said really general stuff. I'm the life and soul of the party. I'm a real people person. I really want to win this. I'm going to give it 110%. And if you look on LinkedIn, people do, you know, leadership, authenticity. I mean, now it's unprecedented. How often we're saying unprecedented, isn't it? Pivot, you know, all those ones that you think they just don't mean anything at all. 15 years experience as a passionate ... What does it mean? It means nothing. You know,
right,
there are people who are serial killers, who've been, you know, very passionate medics for 40 years. Doesn't mean they were good at it, just meant they had a long time to kill people. It's not gin, it's water.
Oh dear. Well, while you're taking a sip and refreshing your mouth, think on this. This is my first question for our conversation around bringing bias in from the cold. What do you think bias is?
Oh, see, I have a real problem with this because bias sounds negative, but I'm not sure it is. Well, so I think that bias is all your experience of something that gives you an informed decision about something. But I think if you use that without using free will and free thought, that you think, okay, yeah, you know, I've had 8 husbands and they've all cheated on me. Doesn't mean number 9 will. But it does mean that you have to ask yourself the question and be a little bit careful. So you can either never marry again, which means you're using your bias in a detrimental way, or you can use your bias very smartly and, you know, sit down and have a conversation over a gin and say, have you ever murdered a wife? Have you ever cheated? Have you ever stolen? Have you ever ended up in court? Oh, you've been married 72 times. Right, okay. So I think maybe, I don't know. See, I think it's either good because it's experience or it's really bad because we have a prejudiced opinion and we don't think further. So I'm not going to give you an answer because I think it is experience and wonderful and prejudice and bad.
Yes.
And I'll tell you a story that just stuck in my head and I don't even know what I think about it. It just stuck in my head. It was a guy I worked with at the BBC in London, and the BBC in London is in Shepherd's Bush, White City, part of town out in the west. It used to be a kind of rough area. Now it's quite swish because, you know, most of London is quite swish now. But if you took the train at night, you wouldn't go down to the train station by yourself. You know, it was one of those kind of areas. And my boss, a bloke who was probably about 35 at the time, he said he walked down onto the platform. He said there were 2 young black men on the platform wearing hoodies, and they looked at him in a certain way. And he looked back and he said, I had this moment where I thought, you know, bias. I'm seeing 2 young black men. I'm seeing them 11 o'clock at night and they're wearing hoodies and I think they're going to cause trouble. Now, they could be on their way to medical school because they've just finished their shift at, you know, St. Bartholomew's, and they're going to do some charity work with some homeless people and blah, blah, blah. And then they robbed him. And he said he didn't know what to think about it. He just thought, this is, you know, I thought they might do it and they did, which is really bad. I thought they might do it. And that's because of all the things that I'd read about, you know, men that look like that, a certain age. And we talked about it for ages and we talked around and around and we were kind of like, I don't want to think that every time I see, you know, a fat person that they're gluttonous. I don't want to think that every time I see an old person, they're stupid. I don't want to think every time I see, you know, a female, they're angry or, you know, I don't want to think all of that. But of course, everything that's happened in my life has led me to, if I touch something hot, it will burn me. Sorry, it's a thread that I pulled and I couldn't come up with an answer.
Look, and that's fine. And one of the things that I wanted to do with these conversations was not have people who saw everything from my perspective, because that's what a conversation
your perspective
is about. Well, see, I will come back to the thing about experience because I really want to talk about that. I love it. I see bias as something that has formed in our formative years, in childhood, and it comes from our upbringing, our culture, the media, lots of external inputs, and most of our biases form quite young, before we're sort of cognitively aware of what's happening, and they're from external sources, and because of them, we unconsciously will privilege one set of ideas or one group of people over another, and we might exclude another set of ideas or people. So that's my baseline. But I love what you said about experience and bias, because yes, what we would call our unconscious biases form in childhood, but often our experiences, as you say, add to our maybe a preconceived way we have of thinking about people, because that's what our parents did, or that's how we grew up, and those sorts of things. So I think what you were talking about was actually being intentional or being conscious about our biases. That yes, and like that story that you told. And I certainly understand that, because I would be hesitant if I walked down those steps, saw two young men in hoodies. That would be where my mind would go, and I would have to consciously think through like he did. And unfortunately, those young men, in a sense, reinforced the stereotype.
It's a stereotype, isn't it? It's a stereotype that informs decisions. I'm aware of it. I think it's because of my job, Bronwyn, because for so long I put people on TV and I cast shows. So I would try very, very hard to not have 12 white people who look like me. Yes. And I see it in other people's shows. Like, I go, how hard did you try? And I remember being at the BBC in London 15, 20 years ago, and I wanted a black family on a quiz show. And I tried every, if you want an Irish family, you kind of go, we need some accents, we're not representing enough people, and we need to be very broad in our representation of what the country looks like, so that not everybody looks like me. So you would go to the Irish Times, and you'd go to, the Nursing Times. You just try and target certain audiences. And I spoke to the head of diversity, and I said, I cannot get a black family to come on the show. I just don't know what I'm doing wrong. I've tried everything. I've done the Jamaican Times, the West Indian Times, that, I've been to all the places that I think, I would be able to find a family. I just don't know. And he said, black people don't really do quiz shows. And I thought, what?
Wow.
Why? How? Well, maybe they don't because they don't see themselves. You can't be what you can't see.
Yes.
One of my friends, Genevieve, I worked with on Big Brother, she has 2 little boys. And she said what's wonderful about her little boys is whenever they use the term doctor, they say she. Because their doctor is a woman, and they think that all doctors are women because they've never seen a male doctor, which is lovely. So it's really, I think it's really interesting. I spent a very long time trying to find an Aboriginal person to go on Big Brother. And we had this guy who was a doctor, actually. And then he pulled out in the end. And it was really hard. And I guess, if I had a more diverse group of friends, maybe it wouldn't be. But, my friends all look like me. Obviously not like me. God love them. Dodged a bullet there. But, we are always in a bubble, and we're in a bubble of our worlds, and we're in a bubble of Facebook. My Facebook feed tells me what I think. And I wondered recently, Bronwyn, I had this thought about, did I want to mess with the analytics of Facebook? And I did think about it and thought, shall I start liking gun clubs and Trump? And, shall I try and really mess with the system and mess with the logarithm and see what happens, see how my feed changes?
Yes.
Because I have friends who said, you really shouldn't be friends with so-and-so's mum because she likes Trump. Well, that's not going to stop me. And actually, I need to know what she's thinking.
Yeah.
I need to know why she likes Trump. I don't like Trump. I don't think his values align with my values. I try very hard not to think his values are wrong, but they don't align with mine. And I think it's okay for my friends to have very opposing views to me.
Yes.
I think it's good. But I don't know if it's knowledge or bias or experience. If all of your husbands have cheated on you, you're going to think the next one's going to, and they should have a very fresh attitude.
Yes.
So I think we do have to keep the fresh attitude.
I think that's excellent. Yeah, have a fresh attitude. And because I think one of my concerns with bias, and one of the reasons I do this, is that there's so much shame attached to the notion of bias. You'd said it was a negative concept, and people don't like to think that they're racist. However, I can put up my hand and say I've had an experience of discovering I do have racist. I would have said I never had a racist bone in my body, but a life experience showed me that I did, largely because I'd grown up in a white monocultural conservative Bible Belt area of Sydney. I didn't mix with anybody else. And so there was this sense of fear, not because people who were different to me were actually physically going to hurt me, but just because they were different. But once you become conscious of that, you then get a choice about what do I do with this. And, my mantra now is that I see difference as an asset rather than a threat. But there are so many of us who operate out of the difference is a threat perspective.
Difference is wonderful. I mean, difference is fantastic. And I think in business, what I try to do when I used to make TV shows is have lots of people who disagreed with me around me, because I know what my opinion is. I need someone to find fault with it. Because if this show is going to be the number one show, and I was making the big ones, they had to be number one because they were spending so much money on them. I liked lots of people in the room who disagreed. I really like that. So they kind of go, no, I don't think that's going to work. No, why? Why? And we would pick it to pieces. And we call it, in TV, you call it killing your baby. You just kind of go, I love this idea. I love it. Yeah, it's got to go. We kill it.
Yeah.
So I think I think it's really good to have people who disagree with you. But I think also, certainly I've seen a big shift recently in women and comedy, which is wonderful. In the last 5 years, I remember when I was younger, I was quite senior, quite young, and I looked quite young. So it was quite a problem for me. And I spoke to somebody about it, and one of my friends said, or two friends, one gave me a great piece of advice, and she said, when you're really nervous, behave like an executive producer, just act like one. Imagine you're playing the part of one. What would they do? They'd come in, they'd put the bag down, they'd say, I'd love a coffee. Anyone go and get a coffee? Whereas what you do is you go and you say, would anyone like a coffee? You said, don't do that. Go in, act like a boss. And that's very good news. Very, very good. Very smart. Thank you. And the other one that someone said to me was, when you introduce yourself with a line that isn't true, that will start a conversation that tells them something about you. Yes. So I say, oh, hi, Bronwyn. Now, we have worked together. Was it when I was running Big Brother, or was it when I was running entertainment at the BBC? I know you. And she said, I do that all the time. So before a conversation has started and they're looking at me thinking, who's she married to? Or, how'd she get here? I let them know that actually I'm a player. Was it when I was running, X, Y, and Z TV show that we met? Yep. You think, okay, I know, I've met you before, but I need you to know that I'm a player, that you're sitting with someone who matters in the industry. And it's a shame to have to do it, but I did. I had to do it. And especially doing comedy, I cannot tell you how many people said to me, but women aren't funny. So, right.
And see, that's a biased statement in itself.
Absolutely. 100%. And I had hosts say it to me. I had big bosses say, are you funny? I go, I'm much funnier than you, and you're senior to me. So, yes, I do think I am extraordinarily funny, actually. And given that I produced X, Y, and Z, then yes, that was good, wasn't it? And you think, I don't know. Yeah. I suppose you can get away with something once. If you have, 10 shows that worked, you have to put bias aside and think, oh, okay, that's interesting. maybe she can do
I've
it. So I
been
think,
conscious
yeah.
as I've been inviting guests to do these conversations with me that I don't just want to have a lineup of white people. And I've already got an African American woman and a woman from Ghana who are going, people who I've connected with over the wonderful old internet. But
the interweb.
What I want to do is to show that bias is a common experience. It's a shared experience. Doesn't matter what our skin color is, where we've grown up, we all have to deal with it in some way. And so just as we're going to wrap up in the next few minutes, have you got any thoughts on what we can do either with personal biases or when we come up against someone who is incredibly biased against us, makes a comment like, oh, well, women aren't funny, or women can't do comedy, or, how do we respond to those sorts of situations that are coming out of someone else's biases?
I think one of the things I decided a long time ago was I wasn't going to get angry about it, because angry just is pointless to me. So what I tend to do is I call it love bombing. I bomb them with love. Okay. I just love the hell out of them. Yeah. And when I first came to Australia, I worked with a guy who said to me, right, people like you, like, I don't know, Irish? You went, no, British people like you, not British, come over here and you think you're amazing. And I went, no, I do think I'm amazing. And you think that we're all stupid. No, absolutely don't. And you come over here and you take our jobs. And I said, well, I will train people up, because I'm coming to do something that actually I've done before at a very, very senior level. I think I probably can share some stuff because it's from a completely different world. So that's a good thing. I hate people like you. You come over here and you take our jobs, and I just can't see why they've employed you. And okay, well, I think it's because this particular show, the two people who are running it now are new, and I've just run two of them in one of the biggest markets in the world. So I think that's why they've got me in. And I'm taking a job cut. I'm coming in below them, whereas actually I'm probably on the same level as them. Yeah. But I'm coming in, I'm going to help them. And by the way, you're going to love me by the end of this. No, I'm not. I think you will. And we are now, and this would be 16 years on, best friends. Well, yeah, I love this guy. I think he's brilliant. So I think there is a way around it. But then, I am a, reasonably wealthy, white, middle-class woman who doesn't have a disability. If I were a black woman in a wheelchair, I wonder if I could be as, oh, don't worry, I just love bombing everyone. I come from a very privileged world. So I think your conversations with people who, I think about Trump calling coronavirus the Chinese disease. What's he calling it? Chinese disease? Chinese disease. I mean, mate, came from China. And you're going to go, oh, baby. There's just a little bit of fear in your soul, I think. If you're living in New York now and you're Chinese and, you're talking to someone about coronavirus, you're going to have this little heavy weight in your stomach, aren't you? Thinking, if everyone's looking at me, you think, when we do that to each other, no one wins. So I think good not to judge. I am saying to people at the moment, KFC, your Maz KFC, K, ramp up your kindness, F, treat everyone like your friends and family, and C, communicate with everyone. If you can do those three things, we'll probably get through this together, I think. But I do try very hard not to be biased and not to come with preconceptions. And what's beautiful about the world is I know I do. And I know I do it every single day. I know I judge everyone and everything every single day.
Yeah.
So I think I've just discovered I'm actually not.
That's a great place to end. It's about acknowledging, in a sense, our weaknesses, that we are predisposed to judge, but we are trying not to. And we're trying to do our best to be open, as you say, to come with an open attitude. Well, thank you, Maz Farrelly. It has been wonderful to talk with you. And so